50 years. That is how long Bernie Madoff ran his Ponzi scheme. 1960 to 2008. Half a century. He stole $65 billion from investors, from charities, from his friends, from his family. Nobody knew. Not the SEC, not Wall Street, not his clients, not his sons. For 50 years he lied. Every statement was fake. Every return was fabricated. Every dollar withdrawn came from new victims. It was the largest Ponzi scheme in history. December 11, 2008. Bernie Madoff confessed to his sons. It's all just one big lie. The next day, FBI arrested him, charged with securities fraud. He pleaded guilty, received 150 years in prison, maximum sentence. He died in prison. April 14, 2021, age 82. But the damage was permanent. 4,800 victims, lives destroyed, charities bankrupted, families torn apart, suicides, divorces, despair. Bernie Madoff was Wall Street royalty, former NASDAQ chairman, respected money manager, trusted advisor. Everyone wanted to invest with him. Celebrities, athletes, charities, foundations, pension funds. He promised consistent returns, 10 to 12% annually, every year. No losses, ever, in good markets. In bad markets, always positive, always steady. It seemed too good to be true. It was. Bernie Madoff never invested a single dollar. He opened accounts, sent statements, showed profits, but bought no stocks, no bonds, no securities, nothing. Client money went into his Chase bank account. He used it to pay withdrawals, to fund his lifestyle, to maintain the illusion. When new money came in, he paid old investors. Classic Ponzi, named after Charles Ponzi, 1920s scammer. But Bernie's was bigger, longer, more devastating. This is the story of Bernie Madoff, the man who fooled everyone for 50 years. Bernard Lawrence Madoff, born April 29, 1938. Brooklyn, New York, Jewish family, middle class. His father Ralph worked odd jobs, plumber, stockbroker briefly. Mother Sylvia was homemaker. Bernie was smart, ambitious, driven. He attended Far Rockaway High School, same school as Nobel Prize physicist Richard Feynman. Bernie graduated 1956, enrolled Hofstra University, studied political science, paid tuition working lifeguard, installing sprinkler systems, ambitious entrepreneur from start. 1959, Bernie married Ruth Alpern, high school sweetheart. She worked for his business, handled books, kept records. They had 2 sons, Mark, born 1964, Andrew, born 1966. Both would join the firm. Both would suffer consequences. 1960, Bernie founded Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities, age 22. Started with $5,000, savings from lifeguard jobs, plus $50,000 from Ruth's father, Saul Alpern, accountant with wealthy clients. Bernie began trading penny stocks, small over-the-counter securities, not listed on major exchanges. High risk, high reward. Bernie was good at it, made money, built reputation. By 1970s, Madoff Securities was legitimate broker-dealer, market maker, buying and selling stocks, earning spreads, real business, real profits. Bernie embraced technology, early adopter, computerized trading systems, electronic order routing, automated execution. Before most firms, made Madoff Securities efficient, competitive, respected. 1980s. Bernie became NASDAQ leader, served on board. Eventually, chairman 1990 to 1993. Wall Street establishment. Respected figure. Industry statesman. People trusted him. He had legitimacy. That is what made the fraud possible. Madoff Securities had 2 businesses. One legitimate. Market making, trading, visible, regulated, profitable. The other secret. Investment advisory, exclusive clients, private accounts, invitation only. This side was fraud, complete fraud, from beginning. Bernie claimed sophisticated strategies, split strike conversion, buying stocks, selling options, hedging risk, producing consistent returns, 10 to 12% annually, year after year. No down years, ever. It was impossible. But clients believed. Bernie's reputation, his NASDAQ chairmanship, his success in legitimate business, made people trust. Charities invested, Jewish organizations, country clubs, foundations, wealthy individuals, celebrities. Everyone wanted access. Bernie was selective, turned people away, created exclusivity, mystique, if you got in. You were lucky, privileged, special. This psychology was crucial, made victims feel grateful. Not skeptical. They did not question, did not verify, trusted Bernie completely. By 1990, Bernie managed billions. The Ponzi was decades old, growing, accelerating, and nobody knew. Harry Markopolos knew. From the beginning. 1999, he was portfolio manager. Rampart Investment Management, Boston. Competing firm wanted to replicate Madoff's returns. Asked Markopolos to reverse engineer the strategy. He tried. Studied Madoff's claimed approach. Split strike conversion. Buying S&P 100 stocks. Selling call options. Buying put options. Mathematically impossible. The returns were too consistent. Too smooth. Markets fluctuate. Strategies have bad periods. Madoff never did. Red flags everywhere. Markopolos concluded fraud. Ponzi scheme. Had to be. He reported it to SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, May 2000. Detailed submission. The world's largest hedge fund is a fraud. 29 pages. Mathematical proof. Madoff's return statistically impossible. Volume of options required did not exist. Market could not support strategy at scale. SEC investigated, superficially, asked Madoff questions, accepted answers, closed case. No fraud found. Markopolos was furious. He submitted again. 2001. More evidence. More analysis. SEC investigated again, visited Madoff's offices, reviewed some records, found no fraud. Closed case. Markopolos submitted again. 2005. Third time, even more detailed. 168 pages. The world's largest hedge fund is a fraud. Everything documented, evidence, analysis, proof, SEC investigated. Again. Superficially. Again. Cleared Madoff. Again. How did SEC miss it? Incompetence. Regulatory capture. Madoff was former NASDAQ chairman. Wall Street royalty. A sick employees deferred. Trusted his reputation. Did not want to believe. Did not dig deep. Accepted explanations. Moved on. Markopolos was not only one. Competitors questioned. How did Madoff generate returns? What was secret? Some concluded fraud, but said nothing publicly. Feared lawsuits, defamation, being wrong. Easier to stay silent. Suspicious hedge funds refused invest with Madoff. Too good to be true, but did not report. Did not warn, just avoided. Meanwhile, victims kept investing. Feeder funds raised money. Directed it to Madoff. Charged fees. Lived off fraud. Some feeder fund managers knew, or suspected, but kept quiet. Profits too good. Commissions too large. Easier to ignore than confront. Financial crisis 2008 changed everything. Markets collapsed. Lehman Brothers bankrupt. Stock prices crashed. Redemptions surged. Investors needed cash. Withdrew from hedge funds. From Madoff, $7 billion in redemption requests. November 2008. Bernie could not pay. No investments to sell. No stocks to liquidate. Just bank account. Running dry. 50 years. The Ponzi survived. Because new money kept coming. Covering withdrawals. But financial crisis stopped new money. Redemptions exceeded inflows. The math broke. Ponzi schemes always collapse. Eventually. Bernie's time had come. December 10, 2008. Bernie Madoff called his sons, Mark and Andrew. Both worked at Madoff Securities. Legitimate trading side, not investment advisory. They knew nothing about the Ponzi. Bernie told them, need to talk about bonuses, year-end payments. Firm struggling, financial crisis, redemptions mounting. Bernie wanted to distribute bonuses early, 2 months early, before things got worse. Mark and Andrew came to Bernie's apartment, Manhattan penthouse. Ruth was there, Bernie's wife, 50 years married. Bernie spoke, fumbling, nervous, unusual for him. He said the investment advisory business was struggling. Redemptions. He could not meet them. He could not pay. Then he said it. It's all just one big lie. The advisory business, a giant Ponzi scheme, always had been. For decades, he had no investments. Everything was fake. Mark and Andrew were stunned, shocked, horrified. Their father. Wall Street legend, criminal fraud, Ponzi. They asked questions. How long? Since when? Bernie said from the beginning. 1960s. 50 years. Almost all of it. Lie. They asked how much. How big, Bernie estimated. $50 billion, losses, maybe more. Mark and Andrew could not process. 50 billion? Impossible. But Bernie was confessing, serious, desperate. He planned to turn himself in a week, after distributing remaining funds. To family, employees, friends. Mark and Andrew refused. No. Turn yourself in now. Tomorrow. We will call a lawyer. Tonight. They left, devastated, confused, betrayed, that night. Mark and Andrew consulted lawyer. Martin Flumenbaum explained situation. Flumenbaum advised. Must report. To authorities immediately. No choice. The sons agreed. Next morning. December 11, 2008. Lawyer contacted prosecutors. FBI. Explained. Bernie Madoff confessed. Ponzi scheme. $50 billion. Agents responded. Immediately. 2 FBI agents went to Bernie's apartment. Early morning. Theodore Cacioppi. B.J. Kang. They knocked. Bernie answered. Wearing bathrobe. They identified themselves. FBI. Asked to speak. Bernie invited them in. Agent Cacioppi asked. Are you Bernard Madoff? Yes. We are here to find out if there is an innocent explanation. Bernie paused, then said, There is no innocent explanation. Agent asked what he meant. Bernie replied, I am responsible for a Ponzi scheme. I am finished. I have absolutely nothing. It is all just one big lie. Basically a giant Ponzi scheme. Agents arrested him, charged with securities fraud. Single count, maximum 20 years. Later charges added. More counts, more years. Bernie was released on $10 million bail. Confined to apartment, electronic monitoring. Awaiting trial. The world learned. December 12. News broke. Bernie Madoff arrested. Ponzi scheme, $50 billion. Largest fraud in history. Wall Street shocked. Victims devastated. Charities bankrupted. Lives destroyed. The unraveling began. 4,800 victims, individuals, charities, foundations, pension funds. All trusted Bernie. All lost everything. Some victims were wealthy. Movie director Steven Spielberg. DreamWorks Foundation lost millions. Actor Kevin Bacon. Wife Kira Sedgwick. Lost everything. Baseball star Sandy Koufax. Hall of Fame pitcher. Invested lifetime savings. Gone. But most victims were ordinary. Retirees. Middle class. Life savings invested. Trusting Bernie's reputation. Believing consistent returns. Now penniless. Mortimer Zuckerman. Real estate billionaire. Owner New York Daily News. Lost $25 million. Wilpon family. Owned New York Mets. Lost $300 million. Nearly bankrupted team. Norman Brayman. Former Philadelphia Eagles owner. Lost tens of millions. But charities suffered most. Elie Wiesel Foundation for Humanity. Holocaust survivor. Nobel laureate. Lost $15 million. Entire endowment. Foundation closed. Hadassah. Women's Zionist organization. Lost $90 million. Devastating blow. Yeshiva University. Lost $110 million. Largest loss any victim. University slashed budgets. Laid off employees. Cut programs. Steven Spielberg's Wunderkinder Foundation. Lost millions. Charities trusted Bernie. Jewish community. Philanthropist. Generous donor. They never suspected. Never verified. Completely destroyed. Suicides followed. Thierry Magon de la Ville-Huchet. French aristocrat. Money manager. Lost $1.4 billion. Client funds. His own fortune. December 22, 2008. 2 weeks after Madoff's arrest. Found dead. Office in Manhattan. Slit wrists. Sleeping pills. Suicide note. Blamed himself for trusting Madoff. For losing clients' money. Could not live with shame. William Foxton. British Army veteran. Age 65. Invested life savings. £1 million. With Madoff feeder fund. Lost everything. February 14, 2009. Shot himself. At home, England. Suicide. Could not face poverty. After lifetime of saving. René Thierry Magon de la Ville-Huchet's brother. Also invested. Also ruined. Charles Murphy. Former CEO. Fairfield Greenwich Group. Feeder fund. $7 billion invested with Madoff. All lost. Murphy did not commit suicide. But his name was ruined. Lawsuits. Investigations. Family torn apart. Mark Madoff. Bernie's son. Suffered most. December 11, 2010. Exactly 2 years after father's arrest. Hung himself. Apartment in Manhattan. Ceiling pipe. His 2-year-old son sleeping in next room. Mark could not bear the shame. The accusations. The lawsuits. The hatred. People blamed him. Thought he knew, profited, he did not. He was victim too. But nobody believed. His name was Madoff. Guilty by association. Mark left suicide note. To his wife. Please send someone to take care of Nick. His son. Mark was 46. Andrew Madoff. Other son. Survived the scandal, barely. Estranged from Mother Ruth. Refused to speak. Blamed her. For not knowing. For not stopping it. Andrew developed cancer. Lymphoma. Stress-induced. Doctor said. 2014. Cancer returned. Aggressive. Untreatable. Andrew died. September 3rd, 2014. Age 48. Bernie destroyed his family completely. The mechanics were simple. Bernie Madoff never invested client money, never bought stocks, never traded options, never executed split strike conversion. Nothing. Client money went into Chase Manhattan bank account. Account number 703. Business account. Madoff Securities. Bernie used money. 3 purposes. Pay withdrawals. When clients redeemed, Bernie paid from account, using other clients' money, not investment returns, because there were no investments. Fund lifestyle. Bernie lived lavishly. Manhattan penthouse, Montauk Beach house, Palm Beach mansion, French villa, yachts, private jets, expensive cars, all funded with stolen money. Create illusion. Bernie needed to show growth. Clients expected returns, 10 to 12% annually. Bernie fabricated statements. Fake trades, fake profits, fake balances, all lies. He hired Frank DePascali, chief financial officer. DePascali knew from beginning, helped execute fraud, created fake trade confirmations, backdated transactions, made up prices, matched S&P 100 movements. But actual trades never happened. Computer system tracked lies. Every client had a count, showed holdings, showed trades, showed returns, all generated internally by DePascali, by computer programmer, nobody else. Statements looked real, professional, detailed, lists of stocks purchased, options sold, puts bought, prices, dates, everything. Clients received quarterly, sometimes monthly, returns always positive, always consistent, always approximately 10 to 12%. Mathematically impossible. But clients believed, did not verify, did not ask questions, trusted Bernie. Why did nobody notice? Several reasons. Exclusivity. Bernie kept advisory business separate from legitimate trading business. Different floor, different employees. Sons Mark and Andrew never saw, never knew. Worked trading side. Only trading, selectivity. Bernie turned people away. Made investors feel privileged, lucky, special. Psychology prevented skepticism. If you questioned, you might get kicked out. Lose access. Better stay quiet. Grateful. Statements through mail. Not electronic. Bernie sent paper statements. No online access. No third-party verification. No independent custodian. Everything controlled by Bernie. Red flag. Huge red flag. But clients did not care. Feeder funds. Bernie did not advertise. Relied on feeder funds. Third parties raising money. Directing to Madoff. Charging fees. They brought billions. Earned commissions. Had incentive to not question. To keep feeding. To keep profiting. SEC incompetence. Harry Markopoulos reported. Multiple times. SEC investigated. Multiple times. Found nothing because they did not look. Did not verify with third parties. Did not check if trades occurred. Just asked Bernie. Believed answers. Closed cases. Financial crisis exposed. Ponzi schemes need new money, constantly, to pay old investors. For 50 years, new money came, exceeded withdrawals. But 2008, financial crisis. Redemptions surged. $7 billion requested. November alone, Bernie could not pay. No investments to sell, just bank account, empty, math did not work. Collapse inevitable. December 11, 2008, FBI arrested Bernie Madoff. Charged securities fraud. Single count, but investigation just beginning. Prosecutors needed evidence, understanding of fraud. How long, how big, who else involved? Frank DePascali cooperated immediately. Madoff's CFO knew everything, created fake statements, backdated trades, generated returns. He pleaded guilty. August 2009. 10 counts. Conspiracy, securities fraud, tax evasion. Faced 125 years. Testified against Bernie. Against accomplices. Received 10-year sentence. Died 2015. Cancer. Before completing sentence. Prosecutors traced money. Through Chase account. 703. 47 years of transactions. Deposits from clients. Withdrawals to clients. Payments to Bernie. Family expenses, lifestyle, yachts, homes, cars, all documented. Billions stolen, used for personal enrichment. Bernie's brother Peter worked at firm. Deputy, compliance officer. Prosecutors charged him. Knew about fraud. Facilitated. Peter initially denied. Then pleaded guilty. June 2012. Conspiracy. Falsifying records. Received 10 years. Served 9. Released 2020. Bernie's niece Shauna, Peter's daughter. Compliance attorney. Madoff Securities. Prosecutors investigated. Considered charges. Eventually decided, no prosecution, insufficient evidence she knew. But her career destroyed, name tainted, forever associated. Bernie's sons, Mark and Andrew. Prosecutors investigated thoroughly, considered charges, reviewed emails, bank records, trading records, looking for evidence they knew. Found nothing. Prosecutors concluded. Sons did not know, were not involved. Worked legitimate side, trading, market making, separate from Ponzi. But public did not believe. Victims did not believe. Lawsuits filed against them. Clawback suits. Trustees recovering money from anyone who withdrew profits. Even if innocent, even if unaware. Mark and Andrew paid millions. Settlements, their inheritance. Their earnings, all seized. Compensate victims. Irving Picard, bankrupted trustee, appointed recover funds for victims. Picard filed hundreds of lawsuits against feeder funds, against banks, against investors who withdrew profits, claiming knew or should have known, demanding return of fictitious profits. J.P. Morgan Chase, Madoff's bank. Picard sued. $2 billion. Bank earned fees. Serviced accounts. Should have noticed. Red flags everywhere. Case settled. $1.7 billion paid. HSBC, feeder fund banker, sued. $9 billion. Settled. $600 million. Citibank, BNP Paribas, UBS, all sued. All settled. Billions recovered. But nowhere near $65 billion lost. Picard recovered approximately $14 billion. Through settlements, asset sales, clawbacks, distributed to victims, cents on dollar. Most victims received 20 to 30% of losses. Some received 50%. Many received nothing. Claims exceeded recoveries. Not enough to go around. Bernie's personal assets seized. Homes, yachts, cars, art, jewelry, everything. Auctioned. Proceeds distributed. His wife Ruth forced to forfeit. Most assets. Kept $2.5 million. Allowed to live on. Modestly, she moved. Connecticut, small apartment. Away from New York. Away from victims. Away from shame. Bernie pleaded guilty. March 12, 2009. 11 counts. Securities fraud. Wire fraud. Money laundering. Perjury. Faced 150 years. Maximum. He was 70 years old. Essentially life sentence. There was no trial. Bernie Madoff pleaded guilty. March 12, 2009. Federal Court, Manhattan. Judge Denny Chin presiding. Bernie arrived early. Wearing gray suit, blue tie. Looking older, thinner, worried. Courtroom packed. Victims, media, prosecutors, defense lawyers. Everyone wanted to see. Bernie stood, facing Judge. Judge Chin asked, "How do you plead?" Bernie answered, "Guilty, to all 11 counts." Judge asked questions, confirmed understanding, confirmed voluntarily pleading. No deal, no agreement, just guilty. Prosecutors could seek maximum. Bernie accepted. Judge Chin asked Bernie, "Explain what you did, in your own words." Bernie spoke, reading prepared statement, his voice flat, emotionless. "Your Honor, for many years up until my arrest, I operated a Ponzi scheme through the investment advisory side of my business. Bernie Madoff Securities, LLC. I knew what I was doing was wrong. Indeed criminal. When I began the Ponzi scheme, I believed it would end shortly, and I would be able to extricate myself and my clients. However, this proved difficult and ultimately impossible. As the years went by, I realized my risk, and this day would inevitably come." He continued, describing mechanics, how he collected money, promised returns, never invested, used new money to pay old investors. Classic Ponzi. He admitted it all, took full responsibility, then said something that angered victims. "To the best of my recollection, my fraud began in the early 1990s. Early 1990s. Not 1960, not 1970, 1990. Bernie was lying. Even in confession, even in guilty plea. Still lying, minimizing, trying to reduce scope. Prosecutors knew. Harry Markopoulos proved. Fraud went back decades. 1960s. 50 years, not 15 years. But Bernie would not admit, would not confess full extent. Why? Pride, ego, or protecting someone. Family, perhaps. If fraud started 1990s. Ruth less culpable, sons less suspicious. Maybe Bernie protecting them from prosecution, from clawbacks, from worse. Victims spoke. 9 victims gave statements. Addressing Bernie directly. Bert Ross, former mayor. Lost $10 million. Life savings gone. Cannot retire. Will work until death. Carla Hirschhorn, widow. Lost life savings. My husband died believing we were secure. That security was lie. Miriam Siegman, retiree, lost everything. Trusted you. You were respected. You destroyed that trust. Destroyed my life. Dominic Ambrosino, retired educator. Lost 1 million. Pension. You are lower than pond scum. You deserve to rot in prison. Each victim. Pain, anger, devastation. Bernie listened. No expression. No emotion. No remorse visible. Judge Chin scheduled sentencing. June 29, 2009. 3 months later. Bernie returned to apartment. Electronic monitoring. Awaiting sentence. But outcome certain. Maximum. 150 years. No parole. Federal prison. Life sentence. Bernie was 70 years old. Would die in prison. Knew it. Accepted it. What he faced. For 50 years of lies. June 29, 2009. Sentencing day. Federal Court, Manhattan. Judge Denny Chin presiding. Courtroom overflowed. Victims, media, security everywhere. Bernie entered. Gray suit. Handcuffed. Looking resigned. Defeated. He sat. Awaited fate. Judge Chin allowed victim statements. Many spoke. Pain, anger, devastation. Michael Schwartz. Lost life savings. You are a terrorist. Financial terrorist. You destroyed lives. Deserve worse punishment. Dominic Ambrosino. Retired teacher. Hope you suffer. Every day, for rest of miserable life. Joan Sinkin. Lost husband's pension. He died thinking we were secure. You took that security, that peace. You are evil. 13 victims spoke. Each story heartbreaking. Retirees, charities, foundations, all destroyed. Bernie's lawyer spoke. Ira Sorkin. Requested 12 years. Argued Bernie cooperated. Pleaded guilty. Saved costs of trial. 65 billion overstated. Much less actual loss. Money withdrawn. Reduced real damages. 12 years sufficient. Bernie 70 years old. Health declining. Longer sentence excessive. Bernie then spoke. Final statement. Before sentencing. His voice quiet, strained. I am responsible for a great deal of suffering and pain. I understand that. I live in a tormented state now, knowing all the pain and suffering I have created. I have left a legacy of shame, as some of my victims have pointed out, to my family and my grandchildren. I am sorry. I know that doesn't help you. That was it. Short, inadequate, no real explanation, no detailed apology, nothing that satisfied victims. Just sorry, Judge Chin responded. Read from prepared statement. His tone stern, disappointed. The fraud here was staggering. The breach of trust was massive. Defendant operated his fraud on an unprecedented scale. Over the course of decades, he sought to portray himself as a man of integrity, philanthropist. But that was all a lie. A sham. His crimes were extraordinarily evil. Judge continued. Reviewing guidelines. Federal sentencing guidelines suggested 50 years. But judge had discretion. Could impose more or less. Judge said Bernie's crime deserved maximum, symbolic of greed, arrogance, betrayal of trust. Victims deserve justice. Harsh justice. Message must be sent. Fraud will not be tolerated. Judge Chin imposed sentence. It is my intention that the defendant be imprisoned for life. I sentence Bernie Madoff to 150 years in prison. Courtroom erupted. Victims cheered, clapped. Some cried. Relief, vindication, justice. Finally. Bernie showed no reaction. Stood still, handcuffed. Hearing 150 years. Life sentence, maximum possible. He was 71 years old. Would die in prison. No chance of parole. Federal sentences. No parole. Must serve 85%. But at 150 years, Bernie would serve every day. Until death. Judge finished. Bernie led away. Handcuffs, marshals, out of courtroom. To prison, forever, that night. Bernie transported. Metropolitan Correctional Center. Manhattan, holding facility. Awaiting transfer. Federal prison. Butner, North Carolina. Medium security, where he would spend remaining years alone, hated, forgotten. July 14, 2009. Bernie Madoff arrived. Butner Federal Correctional Institution, North Carolina. Medium security. Inmate number 61727-054. Age 71. Sentenced 150 years. Life. Bernie adapted. Prison routine. Wake 6 a.m., breakfast, work assignment, library, or janitorial, lunch, recreation, dinner, lockdown, 9 p.m., same schedule. Every day, for years. Fellow inmates knew who he was. Bernie Madoff, Ponzi schemer, billionaire fraudster. Some resented him. Rich guy, white-collar criminal, easy time. Others respected him. He stole billions. Got away with it. For decades. Bernie mostly kept to himself, quiet, reserved, avoided trouble, stayed in routine. He had no visitors. Initially, Ruth came. Few times, then stopped. Sons refused. Mark committed suicide. 2010, Andrew estranged. Dying of cancer. Bernie alone, completely. Interviews occasionally, journalists, researchers. Bernie talked. About fraud, about regrets, about victims. Sometimes showed remorse, sometimes blamed others. Inconsistent, confusing. 2011, Barbara Walters interviewed. ABC News special. Bernie spoke, from prison, by phone. Said he felt terrible. About victims, about family, about shame. Claimed he started fraud early 1990s. Not earlier. Still lying. About timeline. About scope. Protecting someone. Or himself. 2013. Bernie gave interview. Financial Times claimed sons knew nothing. Were innocent, victims like everyone else. Defended them, posthumously. Mark dead. Andrew dying. Bernie trying to protect their reputations. Their children. His grandchildren. From association. From shame. Prison affected Bernie. Physically, aged rapidly. Health declined. Heart problems, kidney issues, hypertension, diabetes, prison medical care adequate, but not great. Bernie deteriorated. Slowly, inevitably. 2019. Bernie suffered heart attack. Minor, treated, recovered, but weakening. March 2020. COVID pandemic. Hit prisons hard. Butner had outbreaks. Inmates infected. Some died. Bernie at risk. Age 81. Underlying conditions. Heart, kidneys, diabetes, vulnerable. Bernie requested compassionate release. Lawyers filed motion, citing age, health, COVID risk. Judge denied. Bernie's crimes too serious. Victims still suffering. No sympathy. Stay in prison. Until death. Ruth Madoff moved on, sort of. She relocated, Connecticut, small apartment. $2.5 million allowed. From assets. She lived modestly. Worked part-time. Support herself. Rarely spoke publicly. Avoided media. Avoided victims. Changed name consideration. Decided against. Remained Ruth Madoff. Lived with shame. Estranged from surviving family. Andrew died 2014. His children blamed Ruth. Refused contact. Bernie's brother Peter. Released 2020. After 9 years. Moved Florida. Stayed quiet. Disgraced. Shauna, Bernie's niece. Changed name. Moved away. Started over. Career ruined. Name toxic. Madoff family destroyed. Completely. Scattered. Ashamed. Broken. Victims continued suffering. Many never recovered. Financially, emotionally, psychologically. Destroyed by Bernie. By trust misplaced. Some victims organized. Support groups. Victim networks. Sharing stories. Supporting each other. Demanding accountability. Seeking restitution. Most received partial payments. From trustee recoveries. 20 to 50% of losses. Better than nothing. But not whole. Never whole. April 14th, 2021. Bernie Madoff died. Federal prison. Butner, North Carolina. Chronic kidney disease. Natural causes. Age 82. 12 years into 150-year sentence. He was gone, but damage remained forever. Harry Markopoulos knew Bernie Madoff was fraud. From 1999. First encounter. Markopoulos was portfolio manager. Rampart Investment Management. Boston. Competing firm wanted to replicate Madoff's returns. Asked Markopoulos to reverse engineer strategy. Split strike conversion. Buying S&P 100 stocks. Selling call options. Buying put options. Supposedly, Markopoulos tried. Could not. Math did not work. Returns impossible. Too consistent. Too smooth. No down months. No bad years. Ever. Statistically impossible. Market does not work that way. Strategies have variance. Losses. Drawdowns. Madoff never did. Red flags everywhere. Volume of options required. Did not exist. Market could not support. Strategy at Bernie's scale. Billions invested. Options market too small. Impossible to execute. Markopoulos concluded fraud. Only explanation. Ponzi scheme. Had to be. He reported to SEC. May 2000. Submission titled, "The World's Largest Hedge Fund is a Fraud." 29 pages. Detailed analysis. Mathematical proof. Statistical evidence. Showed Madoff's returns impossible. Showed strategy could not work. Showed fraud obvious. SEC received submission. Boston office, assigned investigator, junior staff. Looked briefly, contacted Madoff, asked questions. Accepted answers. Closed case. No fraud found. Markopoulos was furious. Incompetence. Negligence. Corruption, perhaps. How could they miss it? He submitted again. March 2001. More evidence. More analysis. Stronger case. SEC investigated. Again. Same result. No fraud found. Case closed. Markopoulos submitted again. 2005. Third time. This time 168 pages. Titled, "The World's Largest Hedge Fund is a Fraud. Everything documented. Evidence. Analysis. Expert opinions. Testimonials. Proof. Irrefutable proof. SEC investigated. Megan Chung, branch chief, New York office. She met with Madoff, reviewed some records, asked questions, accepted explanations, concluded no fraud, closed case. Again. 3 investigations, 3 closures, 0 enforcement. How? SEC incompetence. Investigators lacked expertise, did not understand options, did not understand statistical analysis, did not know what questions to ask. Regulatory capture. Madoff was Wall Street royalty. Former NASDAQ chairman. Respected figure. SEC staff intimidated. Deferred to his reputation. Trusted his answers. Did not challenge. Did not verify independently. Markopoulos gave up. Reporting to SEC. Useless. They would not act, would not investigate properly. He warned competitors, hedge funds, money managers. Some listened, avoided Madoff, refused to invest, but said nothing publicly, feared lawsuits, defamation. Others ignored warnings, trusted Bernie's reputation, invested anyway, lost everything. December 2008. Madoff collapsed, arrested, confessed. Markopoulos vindicated. Finally, 9 years, 3 submissions. Ignored every time. He was right, all along. He testified. Congress, February 2009. House Financial Services Committee. Explained how he knew, how he reported, how SEC failed. Markopoulos was angry, bitter, frustrated. The SEC is a failed regulatory agency. They had multiple chances. They did nothing. They ignored clear evidence. They protected Madoff, whether through incompetence or corruption. Result same. Victims suffered. Billions lost. Lives destroyed. Congress investigated. SEC failures. Inspector General report. August 2009. Documented incompetence. Investigators missed obvious red flags, failed to verify basic facts, accepted Madoff's lies, closed cases prematurely. Report names. Megan Chung, Eric Swanson, others, incompetent, negligent, disciplined, some resigned, some fired. Too late. Damage done. Markopoulos wrote book. No one would listen. Published 2010. Detailed his efforts, his frustrations, SEC failures. Became bestseller. Markopoulos became famous. Whistleblower hero. Fraud detective. He started consulting. Forensic investigations. Fraud detection. Companies hired him. Find problems. Prevent disasters. He was good at it. Very good. Markopoulos received awards, whistleblower protections, financial incentives. SEC changed rules, after Madoff, to encourage whistleblowers, to reward those who report, to prevent ignoring them. Too late for Madoff victims, but perhaps preventing future frauds. Bernie Madoff did not act alone. Many helped, knowingly, unknowingly, some prosecuted, some escaped. Frank DePascali, Bernie's right hand, chief financial officer, knew everything from early 1980s, joined Madoff Securities young, worked up, became Bernie's lieutenant, executed fraud daily, created fake trade confirmations, backdated transactions, generated false returns, made up prices, matched indices, all fabricated. DePascali ran computer system that tracked lies, every client account, every fake trade, every false balance. He managed it. With small team, computer programmers, junior staff they knew, or should have known. Some testified. They thought it was legitimate. Creative accounting, not fraud, others admitted. They knew They helped. They profited. Pleaded guilty, cooperated, received reduced sentences. Annette Buongiorno. Worked for Bernie. 4 decades. Managed client accounts. Generated statements. New trades were fake. Pleaded guilty. Received 6 years. Joanne Krupe, account manager. Processed withdrawals. New money came from other clients. Not investments. Pleaded guilty. Received 6 years. Feeder funds enabled fraud. Raised billions. Directed to Bernie. Charged fees. Profited enormously. Some suspected fraud, some knew. Most willfully blind. Easier not to ask. Not to verify. Just collect fees. Fairfield Greenwich Group. Largest feeder. $7 billion invested with Bernie. Walter Knoll. Founder. Jeffrey Tucker. Partner. Controlled fund. Received $450 million in fees. Over 20 years. They did not verify. Bernie's strategy. Did not visit operations. Did not confirm trades independently. Just trusted Bernie. Collected fees. When Madoff collapsed. Fairfield destroyed. Investors sued. Trustees sued. Recovered billions. From Fairfield. From partners. From their personal fortunes. Knoll and Tucker bankrupted. Reputations ruined. Tremont Group. Feeder fund. $3 billion with Bernie. Collected fees. Did not verify. Sued after collapse. Settled. Paid millions. Kinggate Management. Feeder fund. $2.8 billion with Bernie. Principals knew Bernie's father-in-law. Saul Alpern. Trusted connection. Never verified. Lost everything. Sued. Settled. Bank enablers. J.P. Morgan Chase. Bernie's bank. Account 703. All client money flowed through. For decades. Bank employees saw. Large deposits. Large withdrawals. No stock purchases. No investment activity. Red flags. Obvious red flags. But bank said nothing. Did nothing. Collected fees. Earned interest. Profited from fraud. After collapse. Trustees sued. J.P. Morgan. Claiming should have known. Should have reported. Suspicious activity. J.P. Morgan settled. $1.7 billion. No admission wrongdoing, but paid. Family members questioned. Ruth Madoff. Bernie's wife. 50 years married. Prosecutors investigated. Considered charges. Concluded insufficient evidence. She claimed knew nothing. Believed Bernie legitimate. Many doubted. How could she not know? Lived lavishly. Multiple homes. Expensive lifestyle. Where did she think money came from? But prosecutors could not prove knowledge. Let her go. Seized most assets. Left her $2.5 million. To live on. Peter Madoff. Bernie's brother. Deputy. Chief Compliance Officer. Pleaded guilty. Knew about fraud. Facilitated falsified records. Received 10 years. Served 9. Released. Disgraced. Shauna Madoff. Peter's daughter. Compliance attorney. Investigated. Not charged. Insufficient evidence, but career destroyed. Name tainted. Sons Mark and Andrew. Thoroughly investigated. Prosecutors found nothing. They did not know. Did not profit from Ponzi. Worked a legitimate side. Separate business. But public blamed them. Victims sued them. Trustees clawed back. Their inheritances. Their earnings. Everything. Mark committed suicide. Andrew died cancer. Both destroyed. By association. Irving Picard. Bankrupted trustee. Appointed December 2008. Recover funds. For victims. Liquidate Madoff securities. Distribute assets. Maximize recoveries. Picard was aggressive. Filed hundreds of lawsuits. Against anyone who profited. From Madoff accounts. Even if innocent. Even if unaware. Legal theory. Fraudulent transfers. If you withdrew more than you deposited. Fictitious profits. Must return. To compensate victims. Who withdrew less. Or nothing. Thousands of lawsuits. Against investors. Against feeder funds. Against banks. Against family members. Against anyone connected. Picard sued Jeffrey Picower estate. Madoff investor. Withdrew $7 billion over years. More than anyone. Picower died. October 2009. Heart attack. Swimming pool. Suspicious circumstances. Some suspected suicide. Estate settled. December 2010. Agreed to pay $7.2 billion. Largest single recovery. Distributed to victims. Picard sued Fairfield Greenwich. Largest feeder fund. Recovered $3.1 billion. Through settlements. Litigation. Picard sued feeder funds. Kinggate. Tremont. Harley. Recovered billions. Settlements. Asset seizures. Picard sued J.P. Morgan Chase. Bernie's bank. Claimed should have known. Should have reported. Settled. $1.7 billion. No admission, but paid. Picard sued HSBC. Bank for feeder funds. Settled. $600 million. Picard sued Mets owners. Wilpon family. Claimed fictitious profits. $300 million withdrawn. Case settled. 162 million paid. Mets nearly sold. To pay settlement. Family retained team. Barely. By 2024. Picard recovered 14.5 billion. Through lawsuits, settlements, asset sales, clawbacks, distributed to victims. Pro rata, based on losses. Most victims received 40 to 60% of principal invested, not profits. Just principal. Some received more, some less. Depended on when invested. When withdrew. How much claimed. No victim made whole. Impossible. 65 billion claimed losses. Only 14 billion recovered. Math did not work. Many victims never recovered emotionally. Financial losses, one thing. Betrayal, another. They trusted Bernie. Believed in him. Recommended him. To friends. To family. To charities. Now felt complicit. Guilty. Ashamed. Some victims organized. Madoff Victim Coalition. Support group. Advocacy organization. Sharing information. Supporting each other. Demanding accountability. Seeking maximum recoveries. They attended hearings. Bankruptcy proceedings. Sentencing. Parole considerations. Making sure voices heard. Victims never forgotten. Some victims forgave. Moved on. Rebuilt lives. Others never did. Bitterness remained. Anger. Resentment. Toward Bernie. Toward enablers. Toward themselves. For trusting. For not questioning. Lessons learned. Verify everything. Trust, but verify. If returns too good to be true, they are. No investment strategy produces consistent positive returns. Every year, for decades, impossible, red flag. Use independent custodians. Third-party verification. Separate from manager. Checks and balances. Demand transparency. Understand strategy. How money invested. Where held. How valued. If manager cannot explain clearly, walk away, do not invest. Madoff's legacy, caution, skepticism, verification, regulations changed, custody rules, verification requirements, auditing standards, all strengthened. Post-Madoff, preventing next Ponzi. Hopefully, but fraud never stops. Just evolves. New disguises, new victims. Eternal vigilance required. Bernie Madoff died. April 14, 2021. Federal prison. Butner, North Carolina. Chronic kidney disease. Natural causes. Age 82. 12 years into 150-year sentence. He was gone, but legacy remained. 4,800 victims, lives destroyed, charities bankrupted, families torn apart, suicides, divorces, despair, $65 billion, claimed losses, largest fraud in history, ran for 50 years. Nobody noticed. Nobody stopped it. Until collapse inevitable. Bernie fooled everyone. His clients, his family, his friends, Wall Street, regulators, for half a century. How? Reputation. Bernie Madoff was respected. Former NASDAQ chairman, successful trader, legitimate business, market maker, profitable, visible, real. That legitimacy covered fraud, made people trust, made them not question, made them believe impossible returns. Selectivity. Bernie turned people away, made investors feel privileged, lucky, special. Psychology prevented skepticism. If you questioned, you might lose access. Better stay grateful, quiet, trusting, complexity. Bernie claimed sophisticated strategy, split strike conversion, options, hedging, risk management. Sounded impressive, sounded legitimate. Most investors did not understand. Trusted Bernie understood. For them, regulators failed. Harry Markopolos reported 3 times, 9 years. SEC investigated 3 times, found nothing. Incompetence, regulatory capture, deference to reputation. Whatever reason, they failed. Victims suffered. Because regulators did not do their jobs. Enablers profited. Feeder funds, banks, accountants, lawyers, all collected fees from Madoff money. Some knew, some suspected, some willfully blind. All profited until collapse, then faced lawsuits, clawbacks, prosecution. Some, not all. Family destroyed. Mark Madoff suicide. 2010. Andrew Madoff cancer death. 2014. Peter Madoff prison. 9 years. Shauna Madoff career destroyed. Ruth Madoff estranged, living modestly, alone, ashamed. Bernie destroyed his own family. Completely. permanently, victims never whole. Irving Picard recovered $14 billion, distributed to victims. Most received 40 to 60% of principal, not profits, just principal back. Some victims rebuilt, others never recovered. Financially, emotionally, psychologically, scars remained, forever. Lessons learned. Verify everything. Trust, but verify. No investment produces consistent returns every year for decades. Impossible. If too good to be true, it is. Demand transparency, independent custodians, third-party verification. Understand where money is, how invested. If cannot explain clearly, walk away. Regulations changed. Post-Madoff reforms, custody rules, auditing requirements, verification standards, all strengthened to prevent next Ponzi. But fraud continues. Different forms, different schemes, different victims. Bernie Madoff gone. But greed remains. Deception remains. Victims will come, again. Unless vigilance maintained. Unless verification demanded. Unless trust tempered. With skepticism. Bernie Madoff ran largest fraud ever. For 50 years. Fooled everyone. Until he could not. Math caught up. Ponzi collapsed. Justice served. Too late for thousands who lost everything because they trusted Bernie Madoff, the man who lied for 50 years and destroyed thousands in process.